republic and democratic socialism. So, again, economic foundation, capitalist free market all the way. Democratic socialism, a public cooperative ownership of the foundational elements of our economic security. Now, some of you are thinking, oh, no way, no way. And that's fine. But 100% pure capitalism versus this other extreme, maybe when we look at it, maybe neither one of those extremes speaks to our heart. And we want to have a conversation about, can we do something better? Primary goal, Democratic Republic, individual liberty and rule of law. Individual liberty and rule of law. Now, you need to ask you, and in a democratic socialism, economic and social equality. Economic and social equality. So again, we're getting into some Pollyanna areas, right? And you think, well, individual liberty and rule of law, well, of course that's what I want. But ask yourselves, is that the America we see today? Do you have total individual liberties with AI tracking every move you make? With AI making decisions about who gets arrested by ICE agents based on some discrepancy in a database? Because that's happening. I mean, just listen to my last video. So ask yourself, do we have that individual liberty and then rule of law? Honestly, rule of law in this country, rule of law. Now, many of you are young enough that you probably don't remember a time, but I remember a time when you would never, ever, ever in this country hear about masked men running around the streets with extreme weapons, hauling people out of their cars with no due process, no rule of law. It it's impossible to imagine for someone like myself, and yet I see it every day. And remember, much of what's happening is being done in a way that the human element is being taken out of it. Think about if you have an AI system that is checking a bunch of resources, your social security page, your health records, your employment records, um, just everything about you is being checked by these AI systems. And it finds a discrepancy between these databases. It says here that your birth date is this, but it says here that your birth date is something else. It says here that you were born in, it says here you were born in, whatever the mistake is, that little mistake sets off a flag. And now the automated system starts looking at that as though that's a problem. You're the problem. Perhaps you're not who you say you are, and you need to be removed from our society. You could be here illegally. That's why US citizens are being dragged out of their car after somebody smashes their window, because AI is sending that message all the way down to people on the street, ICE agents, that have no skin in the game other than enforcing what is handed to them by the system. So just understand that. Private property, U.S. Democratic Republic, strongly protected. Democratic socialism, restricted or abolished for major industries. So I'm not sure, where you lean on that scale, but think about it. So then let's talk about, and I'm going through this just so that you understand these definitions, because people are going to be throwing them around this election season, and you need to try and understand for yourself what they mean. Social democracy versus democratic socialism. Okay? What's the view on capitalism? Well, in a social democracy, it needs to be regulated and reformed. Regulated and reformed. So there needs to be some regulations in capitalism, and there maybe needs to be some reforms. And if you ask yourself, pick a topic: exorbitant interest rates by credit card companies. Do we just let them charge whatever they want? Capitalism would tell you, yeah, let the market drive it. But then many, many people are caught up in that, and people's lives are destroyed. That speaks to my heart. So, does maybe something need to be regulated there? Maybe. Some company is making millions and millions and millions of dollars on a product, but they're dumping refuge into a river, which is polluting the river. Capitalism would say, let the market, drive everything. But some of us would say, you know what, maybe that needs to be regulated a little bit. A little bit. So again, this is where the conversation is required. And I'll talk about this in a minute. Primary economy, capitalist free market with a safety net. That's a social democracy. So a capitalist free market, but there's a safety net. Why is there a safety net? Because every human life has value. That speaks to my heart. In a democratic socialist economy is run by workers or the public. So again, run by workers or the public. This is where, I would say unions, those kind of things come into play. So, do, do you want everything run by workers or the public, or do you want a free market with a safety net? Or do you want a free market with no safety net? If some homeless people die, what do I care? If some people that are sick don't have money for medical care, what do I care? If they didn't make enough money in their lifetime to afford medical care, what do I care? I got insurance. I'm taken care of. What speaks to your heart? Business ownership in a social democracy, mostly private corporations. In a democratic socialism, worker cooperatives or public entities. Worker cooperatives or public entities. How would that work? I'm not sure. Would it work better? I don't know, but it's worth having a conversation about. Real world examples of social democracy. Social democracy. The Nordic model, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. A democratic socialism, historically rare, closely aligns with the early goals of the British Labour Party or Chile under Salvador Allende. Salvador Allende, maybe. Um, I don't know. So I don't think democratic socialism, but I think social democracy is something that I think people could talk about. And this is why we're in such a bad place today. And I know this video is getting long, and you can, bug off anytime if you're not interested in hearing this. But this is where conversations need to happen. And this is where our government used to be functional because we had two different parties, two different views about how these systems should work. All capitalist, all little bit socialist, a little bit capitalist. Do I care about the old woman who doesn't have health insurance? Is she going to die? Well, she's almost dead anyway. What do I care? Or does it speak to my heart that I do care? Does everybody have value? Does a kid with Down syndrome that's born, do they have value? Or do we just say, you know what? They're probably not going to contribute to society in any meaningful way, meaning bottom line money. If they die, as Scrooge would say, let them die and decrease the surplus population. Maybe that's how you feel. But it depends on what speaks to your heart. So we used to have a system where these two groups of individuals would come together in a place called Washington D.C. It was an old meeting place called the Congress, and they would talk about these different ideas, and they would say, "Nope, I want capitalism because I'm making a lot of money, happy with my money." Other people would say, "It's breaking my heart. I'm seeing people die." Okay, fine. I'll, maybe we could give a little bit of money to help those people. Okay, maybe we could bend a little on some of our rules. Compromise, talking, compromise. That's what used to happen in this place called the Congress. Um, that was the Congress and the Senate. Uh, they're no longer functional anymore. Um, they have completely stopped talking to each other. What we have done this. This is our fault. We have sent people to Washington and told them, do not let the others win. I don't care what you do, don't let the others win. So you got one side that will not let the others win, and you got the other side that will not let the others win. And guess who wins? No one. No one wins. Absolutely no one. This video's gone on much too long. I guess I should probably end it here. I've got a few more things I want to talk about, but as you're listening to the news, and I would encourage you to do this even if it's painful. I would encourage you to listen to various news sources. If you are listening to one single news source, then you are not getting the news. And if you think that all news is fake, news, then you need to turn off all of it. All of it. Because you cannot say all news is fake news except the news that I watch. That's pretty juvenile, don't you think? I mean, think about it. So if you're going to listen to news, take the time to listen to various news sources. And I will tell you that one of the things that has kept this country going for 250 years is an active, unrestricted news mechanism that serves as another method of checks and balances on our government. Because, as we have seen, as we are seeing, the government has ways of getting rid of checks and balances. If I do away with inspector generals in organizations, I'm not going to be inspected anymore. Don't have to worry about that problem. If I co op the Department of Justice and bend it to my will, I certainly don't have to worry about them checking up on me because they're too busy checking up on my enemies. So the news has been extremely important in this country. And when you find yourself thinking, oh, that news station is completely bonkers. No. Think of it in the way that I talked about in the beginning. Half the country is in this camp, and half the country is in this camp. And it's almost become like a sporting event, like a football game, like a soccer game, like a hockey game. Think about whatever sport you're really passionate about, basketball, whatever. That other team, they're my enemy. I don't care who they are. They're my enemy. And I never once think about the individuals on that team. I just think about that team. We have to beat them at any cost. Any cost. Now, most, I hope, sports coaches will tell you, well, yes, any cost except we don't play dirty and we don't cheat. Have we ever seen cheating in sports? Have we ever seen people try to play dirty? Come on, we know it happens. The same is true in our government. It has gotten to the point where we are on one team or another, and we will not even consider that that other team is comprised of moms and dads and kids like mine and grandmas like mine and grandpas like mine and aunts and uncles and dear friends that I have befriended and have known for years and years and years. And I kind of love them. And I don't want to see anything bad happen to them. We've lost that in this country. Anyway, that's my message for today. Um, Probably won't be listened to by much of anybody, but thought I would take a shot at it. The background picture, by the way, is a picture I took of the Sound with some birds sitting on the an old wharf that was out there, and it's just a peaceful peaceful place. Uh, to wrap this all up, I will say one of the ways that you can handle all of the stress, all of the anger, all of the angst, there is one place where you can find truth, truth, and that's in the gospel. Now, I say that, and many of you are going to go, there he goes, talking about that stuff again. I could care less. Maybe. But if you have never actually sat down and read the Gospels, just read them. Just read them. Not to try and pick out the verses that you want to use to nail somebody in a trivia contest or a war of words, but just what is this all about, this gospel thing? Just read it. Just read it. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And if you make it all the way through that, look at Acts. And if you make it all the way through that, then you can start looking at the books that Paul wrote, because Paul was the one that Jesus picked personally, personally on the road to Damascus. Paul, who used to be Saul, the guy who ran around rounding up Christians, throwing them in prison, and stood by and held the coats and garments of people that were stoning Christians because of their blasphemy. That guy, Jesus specifically called him out and said, I want you to give my message to the Gentiles. I've got other Jews that are giving my message to the Jewish people. And there's a real strong connection between the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's really nice if you know that, but if you don't, that's fine. Just understand that there's a message to the Gentiles, and that's most of us, unless you happen to be a practicing Jewish person. Then some of those other messages are, straight out of the Old Testament, and the connection is there if you want to see it. But you have to read the Gospels. Okay, read the Gospels, have a good time. This is way longer than it should have been, and too long. Nobody's going to listen. But hey, have a great day, and I hope to talk to you some more.